You gave blood at the police station, is that true?
That's correct.
How did they withdraw the blood from you?
Stuck the needle in my arm a few times because I think he screwed up the first time when he was doing it.
All right. Did they use a syringe to pull it out, or did they just use a vial? And
I don't know. I wouldn't look. I'm a little
syringe. Early.
I'm a little squeamish about that kind of stuff, so I never look.
So you don't know how they pull it out?
No.
When you say
he screwed up and had to do it again.
Okay, when you say he screwed up, what do you mean?
I don't know. He did it, and then I was talking to Van Adder, I believe, or whatever other opposite side the guy was doing it on. Then he said he screwed up. He talked to Van Adder a little bit, and then he did it again, but I wasn't looking.
Okay, well, when you say he did it again, do you recall where he pulled blood or withdrew blood from you?
It was one of my arms. I don't recall which one.
Okay, and then he made some comment to Van Adder that he screwed up?
Yeah, it was something was, I don't know, something was not right. I wouldn't look, so I don't know exactly what it was.
Well,
and Van Adder was asking me questions, I believe, doing this time.
Do you have a specific recollection of him withdrawing blood from you this first occasion?
I didn't look, so I knew he took the needle, he put the needle in, did something, then took the needle out. Then he put the needle in again. And I remember I was complaining about having to do it again.
And do you recall at any point looking and observing that blood was being withdrawn from your arm?
I absolutely never do that. I'm a little squeamish about that.
Which arm was when you say you're squeamish about that just the sight of blood or blood being pulled from your arm?
Yeah, not necessarily the sight of blood, but to an extent, yes. I'm a little squeamish about blood, but hey, I played football, so you see it.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand when you say you're squeamish about the sight of blood?
To an extent, yes.
What happens when you see blood?
Well, I don't know. I never look when they take blood out of my arm, and there's some other things women will tell you about me.
Well, I don't know what that means.
Well,
I don't
either. Ask them. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm not gonna. We may ask them. I'm asking you right now.
I don't recall.
Okay, so for example, when you see blood on your finger, do you become squeamish?
Not really.
Okay. When you see that you have a cut that's bleeding, does that cause you to become squeamish?
I've had some, yes, that I've been squeamish about, yes.
Okay. Because just the very presence of blood causes you some discomfort.
I don't know if the presence of blood coming from me or on me is a little discomforting, yes. And needles I hate.
Okay. So when you say it's something that's significant to you.
Let me put it this way. I have never, ever in my whole life watched anybody take blood out of my body, and I've had it done many times. So whatever that is, I'm squeamish about that.
Okay. How about just blood being on your body? Does that bother you?
I mean, bother me?
Yes.
I don't like it, but I've lived a whole career with blood on my body.
Okay.
Yes.
And when I say does it bother you, you use the term squeamish. Do you become squeamish when you see blood actually on your body?
I have, yes.
And does that cause you to do anything in particular? Clean it up quickly, address it, or do anything of that nature?
Normally, yes.
Okay. So the way in which you respond to blood on your body is to dress it and clean it as quickly as possible because you're squeamish?
No, not to look at it, basically. Or if there's a trainer around, have the trainer do it and not look at it, not view it. I just don't like looking at blood. If it's coming from me, I don't like looking at it.
Okay, well, you haven't had a trainer around for years, right, Mr. Simpson?
That's correct.
So if you're at home and you see blood on your person, is there anything you do because of the fact that you're squeamish when you look at blood?
I think I do the same thing you do. Clean it up.
Okay, put a Band-Aid on it?
If it requires a Band-Aid.
When you say that you do the same thing I do, are you assuming that there's some reasonable response that typically people have when they're cut or wounded?
Yes.
In dressing that wound?
Yes.
And you would fall in line with what reasonable people would ordinarily do as far as you know, in terms of addressing a wound?
To an extent, yes.
At any time during the course of giving a statement to Detectives Van Ander and Lang, did you ever knowingly tell them anything that was false?
Knowingly? No, they knew and I knew because we stopped once or twice and they asked me if I was tired and could I go along. that I was tired, so I knew at certain points I was tired and maybe not as sharp as they would want me to be, or if I would have wanted to be.
Okay, Mr. Simpson, that's not my question. At any time during the course of providing information to Detectives Van Adder and Lang, did you ever knowingly provide them any information that was false?
Knowingly, no.
How about unknowingly?
Well, don't answer that. I don't know how you could unknowingly provide information that
Well,
was
have you ever gone back and seen information in there that you now believe to be false?
I saw some of it was confused, yes.
Okay, well, we'll talk about confused. Let's talk about false information. Is there anything in there that you have observed since giving the statement that you believe to be false?
Because of the confusion, it was inaccurate, is what I'll say.
Okay, and what do you recall as being inaccurate, using your term?
For instance, I went out to the car to get all the stuff that goes with my cell phone. I said a phone. At one point, I was under the impression that I went and got my daughter's flowers after the recital, when it was obviously during the recital, and I think I caught that one at the time. Some of the things that happened right when I got back from the recital, because they almost were duplicate to what I had done the night before. A few of the things kind of ran together, and I may have said some things that weren't accurate at that particular time at 7 to 7:30.
Okay, and were you nervous during the course of giving this statement?
I wasn't aware of it, no. I think I was a little out of it. I had things on my mind, obviously.
Okay, you don't remember being nervous as you sit here today?
No.
Do you remember being anxious?
Yeah, I'm sure I was a little anxious.
Okay, because you're being questioned in connection with a murder investigation?
No, because I wanted to get out of there and get to my family and find out what had happened.
You can have it. Take it, it's yours.
Do you recall any information that you provided in the statement being inaccurate as it relates to Paula Barbieri?
No. Well, yes, a little, somewhat, yes.
Okay. You indicated to the detectives during the course of providing this statement that you called her as you were driving to her house. You recall that?
Yes.
And that was after the recital. Is that true, Mr. Simpson?
Well, that was inaccurate, yes.
Well, the statement that you provided to the police officers was that you called Miss Barbieri as you were driving to her house after the recital. Is that true?
What
Right.
page are we looking at?
Cream sugar.
So what's it, 9?
9, I think.
You want to take a minute to review it, Mr. Simpson?
No, I
Page
don't
nine.
need to.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. Okay. What
Page
page?
9. Here.
Starting where?
You can review any part of it. Your lawyer wants you to review it. Maybe he'll tell you what he wants you to review.
What do you want me to talk about?
Well, I'm going to ask you questions about Paula Barbieri and driving to her house.
Thank you. Remind them we've got Deposition on Wednesday. They're experts.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? Now, Mr. Simpson, the first time that you ever provided any testimony under oath relative to the events of June 12th, 1994 was during the course of this deposition. Is that true?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And would it be fair to say, Mr. Simpson, that your memory relative to the events of June 12th was better within 24 hours of those events, of describing those events, than it was during 1996?
I think to an extent that's incorrect.
Okay, you think your memory is better now, almost 2 years later, than it was the following day in terms of describing the events of June 12th, 1994?
I think my memory was better after I got some sleep, even the next day, than it was when they were interviewing me.
Okay, so you had some problems with your memory during the course of giving information to these detectives while they were interviewing you regarding this murder investigation?
As you can see here, what you told me to read, I was trying to, and I had pointed out here, I'm trying to think, I was even having problems because I was tired. I was having problems recalling when I bought the flowers for the recital, even though it became obvious that I had to have bought those flowers during the recital, even though at the time they were interviewing me, because of the state I was in, I was thinking that maybe I bought the flowers after the recital, but I think we all know now that those flowers were bought during the recital. But I was tired.
Okay.
I believe I was in some, shock, so things were running together, and I was having trouble putting all of these things together.
You said, as you can see here, you talking about kind of the stammering way in which you provided the statement, at least between lines 15 and 20?
Yes, I'm trying to think, did I leave? This is during the recital, and we know I did leave, but at that time I was having trouble recalling that. But
Okay.
if you read the statement, you can see that I was having some problems at that time.
Right, and you think it's obvious just in looking at the statement that you were having problems recalling that specific information, is that true?
Well, I think it's obvious in light of the fact we knew I bought flowers during the recital, not after the recital.
And your reason that you've given us today is because you were tired.
Well, I was in shock. My ex-wife had been murdered. My kids were wherever they were. Last time I spoke to my daughter, she was in a bad way, and I hadn't slept.
It wasn't because you were making this up as you were going along, was it, Mr. Simpson?
No, that's incorrect.
Now, the first call that you made to Paula Barbieri after the recital, just answering that question, was at 10:03. Is that true?
I don't believe so. I believe I tried her once I got home from the recital.
The first call that you made on your cell phone after the recital was at 10:03. Is that true?
That's correct.
And your testimony during this deposition was that you had begun walking out to your car, and before you even reached your car, you decided that you were not going to drive down to Paula Barbieri's. Is that true?
That's correct.
When you say lines 18, 19, and 20, then I came home, and then I called Paula as I was going to her house, and Paula wasn't home. That's inaccurate?
Well, it depends how you interpret it. At the time, I was running 2 days together, but I did call her as I was going to her house. I tried her on my phone at home. I gather there was her machine was on, and at that point it was, if she wasn't home, I didn't know where to go find Paula. I've never found Paula anywhere except at her house, so I decided not to go.
Well, if taken literally, and you called her after the recital on your cell phone as you were going to her house, that would have been at 10:03. True?
No, that's inaccurate.
Well, the first call you made to her on your cell phone after the recital was at 10:03. Is that true?
Well, as I told you, I was putting a few things together. A few nights were running together. Saturday night, Sunday night was running together. And if you look at my cell phone records, you will see at roughly this time on Saturday, as I was going to Paula's house, I called her.
Okay.
So they were I hadn't slept. I mean, last night was whatever night it was to me. And the nights were running together to me at this time.
Okay, and so as you were providing this information to the detectives in connection with this murder investigation, did you begin to think that all the information was running together and it may be inaccurate?
No, I was very tired, and they were concerned about me being tired because they mentioned it a few times.
Well, did you ever tell them that you wanted to stop the statement? Because
No, I
you were,
said I wanted
excuse
to
me,
get
Mr.
out of here.
Simpson, did you ever tell them that you wanted to stop giving this statement in connection with the murder investigation because you were so tired that you thought you were beginning to provide inaccurate information?
No.
In fact, you answered all the questions that they asked you, didn't you?
As best as I could, yes.
And you never once asked them to stop, to rest, or ever indicate to them that you were tired. Is that true, sir?
I think the way I was answering questions indicated to them, because at one point they asked me, could I go on? And I said, yes, let's just get this over with.
At any time after you got home from the recital, did you ever get into your Bronco and drive towards the house of Paula Barbieri?
No.
By the way, Mr. Simpson, at the time that you were giving this statement, you didn't have your cell phone records in front of you, did you?
No.
You hadn't reviewed your cell phone records, had you, sir?
No.
You hadn't reviewed any of your phone records. Is that true, Mr. Simpson?
That's correct.
And you didn't know, strike that. Did you pay your cell phone records yourself, or did Kathy Randa pay those?
Sure, not Kathy, but my office paid.
Okay. So in other words, on your phone bills for your cellular phone, they go to your office and then they're paid by your office staff or administrator?
That's correct.
Now, I take it, Mr. Simpson, that when you reviewed this statement for the first time, you had had an opportunity to rest
Yes.
after it was transcribed. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your state of mind was a little bit clearer when you had a chance to review the actual transcript of what you said.
That's correct.
And I take it that you reviewed this statement very carefully at that time.
I don't know.
Well, you had given a statement to the police in connection with a murder investigation, and this was your first opportunity to look at what you said, right?
Yes, I was in jail at the time, and I was still a little spacey.
What were you spacey because you were still tired?
No, because they had me on drugs, and the whole experience was I hadn't really been able to deal with it yet.
Okay. Well, you've read the statement that you gave to the Los Angeles Police Department detectives on a number of different occasions, haven't you?
A few times, yes.
Okay. And at any time after you reviewed the statement, did you ever contact the Los Angeles Police Department, either directly or through any agent, and indicate to them that any of the information in this statement was inaccurate?
No, we had hoped it would come out in court, but the LAPD didn't want it in court, so.
That's not my question, Mr. Simpson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you or anyone under your direction ever contact the Los Angeles Police Department and indicate to them that this statement was inaccurate?
We assumed it would come out in court.
Well, I know you want to answer
it
your...
to come out in court, evidently.
See if you can answer my question.
Okay.
Did you ever contact the Los Angeles Police Department or direct anyone on your behalf to contact the Los Angeles Police Department to change the statement?
Don't answer that as it relates to any lawyers.
I can't answer that.
Well, did you ever personally contact the Los Angeles Police Department?
From jail? No.
Okay. Did you ever ask anyone who was a non-lawyer to contact the police department on your behalf?
A non-lawyer?
Yes.
No.
Did you ever file a supplemental report or ask to have filed a supplemental report with the Los Angeles Police Department?
I didn't ask anything.
It's gotta be. You gonna take a break now?
Yeah.
Mike? Okay.
We are going off the record now, and the time is approximately 10:57. We are back on the record now, and the time is approximately 10:55.
Okay. Mr. Simpson, you have the statement in front of you. I want you to go to page 12. And specifically lines 25 and 28. We're going to go through that. And page 13, lines 1 through 18. Well, let's just go through it piece by
Pardon me,
piece.
say that again? I'm sorry.
So I'm just letting you know we're going to go through page 12 and 13, but 12 starting at lines 25 through 28. Okay? And this is in reference to Paula. And the question that you were asked at the time that you gave this statement in connection with this murder investigation was, what time was the recital? Your answer, over at about 6:30. Like I said, I came home, I got in my car, I was going to see my girlfriend, I was calling her, and she wasn't around. Did I read that correctly, sir?
Yes.
And at the time that you gave that statement, was that accurate?
No.
At any time on the 12th, did you ever get in your car to go to Paula Barbieri's?
No.
And did you ever call her as you were going to her house?
No.
And
Again, on the 12th you're
On the
talking
12th.
about.
yeah,
On
Okay.
the 12th, not the 11th.
Yeah, thank you.
On the 12th.
You
Right
just
about
didn't
the
put a date on it. I'm sorry.
now is this inaccurate because you were running the 11th and the 12th together in your mind?
Partially, yes.
Turn the page, and it says, page 13 at the top, so you drove you say Bronco. You got home in the rolls, subject, yeah, question, and then you got in the Bronco, subject, Bronco, because my phone was in the Bronco. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Now, on the 11th, when you saw Ms. Barbieri, you went out to a function with her for the Prime Minister of Israel. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you took the Bentley on that occasion, right?
That's correct.
At any time on the 11th, did you ever drive the Bronco down to Paula Barbieri's?
I may have.
Well, did you?
I don't recall, but I may have.
But you specifically recall driving the Bentley down there, right?
Yes.
Because you picked her up, right?
Yes.
And you went to a function that evening, correct?
That's correct.
And you dropped her off, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in the statement that you're talking, in which you're talking to the detectives, you make specific reference to the Bronco, right?
Yes.
That you called her from the Bronco as you were headed to her house, correct?
That's correct. That's what I said here, correct.
Now that you stand, it's a statement that you made to the detectives in connection with the murder investigation that you now say is inaccurate.
Yes.
You didn't make a trip at any time that day to Paula's, right?
That day being the 12th.
You're right, the 12th.
I was going to go there on the 12th. I got probably halfway and decided not to go.
Okay. So the answer to my question is that you did not make a trip. You didn't actually get into the car and drive to Paula's on the 12th. Is that true?
I got in the car with the intentions to drive to Paula on the 12th, and about halfway there, she hadn't answered, and I turned around and went home, called Nicole, actually, and then tried her again, and went home
What time was this?
right after the golf match.
That you got into your car
Got in my Bronco, yes.
and you drove to Paula's
I was driving to Paula's.
and you got about halfway there?
I would say to about, I believe it was Barrington where I turned.
Okay. And so we're clear, this is on June 12th that you did this.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
a specific memory of this on June 12th,
Yes.
after playing golf.
Yes.
Coming home,
Pardon me?
did you come home first?
No.
So you went from the golf course to
I was
Paula's?
driving down Sunset. I was going to go to Paula's and spend a little time with her.
Okay, and you got to about Barrington?
Yeah, I was having trouble getting through, and I got to about Barrington, yes.
Okay, and then because you couldn't get through, you decided not to continue your trip to her house?
Sorta. I didn't turn right around. I just went down Barrington because if Justin was home, I would have. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, when you say that you just made a statement that if Justin was home, did you then head by Nicole's?
I was heading towards Nicole's when I called Nicole's house.
Well, let's be clear on this, Mr. Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
Were you heading to Paula's when you made this call, or were you heading to Nicole's when you made this call?
Which call are we talking about?
One to Paula.
Oh, okay.
I made more than one call to Paul.
Okay. Well, you were headed to Paula's and trying to call her, is that true?
That's correct.
And this was right after you played golf.
That's correct.
So you went directly from the golf course, heading to Paula's.
Going down Sunset, yes.
Going down Sunset, attempting to call her from your cellular phone.
That's correct.
And during this same drive, did you also attempt to call Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. Was this before you had made a decision not to continue on to Paula's?
Well, I tried Paula again directly after.
After you called Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. And Paula wasn't home?
Correct.
And was it at this point that you decided not to go on to Paula's?
Yes, I was on my way back home at that time, yes.
Well, did you turn around and were you headed home when you made this phone call to Paula after you had spoken, after you had called Nicole?
I didn't turn around, but I was going, I believe, west on San Vicente.
Would that have been in the direction of Paula's house?
No, that would have been in the direction of home.
What I'm trying to figure out here is, are you calling Paula as you're driving to her house, and that at some point, because she's not there, you decide to turn around and not go there? Is that what's going
Yeah,
on?
essentially, yes.
And then when you turned around or decided not to go there, did you then place another phone call to her home?
Yes,
And she still wasn't home?
correct.
Okay. Were you leaving messages for her?
Not the first time. I think I did the last time. Told I was off the golf course, I believe, and I was heading to the house.
When you say not the first time, what are you referring to?
First time when I heard her machine, I just hung up, and then I tried Nicole.
Okay. The first time, was that after golf,
Yes,
while you're in your car,
yes,
driving to her house?
that's correct.
Okay. The second time is when you left a message.
Yes,
Okay. And it was this, at the second, strike that, the second phone call that you made was after you had already decided not to continue under her house. Is that accurate?
if she would have answered, I would have gone to her house, but she didn't, so I continued home.
But you were heading west on San Vicente when you made the second phone call, right?
That's correct.
That was not going towards her house, right?
If she was home, I would have gone to her house, but she wasn't home, so I continued to go home
Okay.
to my
But
house.
if she was home, would you had to turn around?
Yeah,
Okay. And is it this conversation, strike that, is it at this time that you had a conversation with Nicole about tickets?
yes,
Was that an argument?
no,
You had stated during Mr. Petrocelli's examination that the last time that you were asked the last time you had an argument with Nicole. Do you remember that testimony?
yes,
And you had mentioned in connection with that answer, although you didn't finish the answer according to my recollection, you had mentioned something about tickets. Remember that?
not with an argument, no, I was, that's incorrect.
Okay. There was no argument in connection with the tickets?
None whatsoever.
It's just a matter-of-fact conversation you had with her?
Yes, she was wondering about, yes.
Okay. And she was wondering about, what, how many tickets you needed?
Yeah, and just Jason and Arnell, and stuff like that.
What do you mean,
Who-
stuff like that?
Well, if Jason and Arnell was going to attend, and, you know, who could get there first?
Going to page 13, and now focusing on line 11, you make the statement in response to the discussion about the Bronco. You know, I rather drive it than the other car. You see that?
Yes,
Okay. Is that statement made in reference to the Bronco?
yes,
Okay. And was it your preference to drive the Bronco versus the Bentley?
it was an easier car to drive, and I enjoyed driving it, even though I didn't drive it a lot, other than going to golf. I like driving it.
Okay. That was an accurate statement then in terms of your preference
Yes.
as to which automobile you prefer driving.
Yes,
Then going on with line 13, it says, and I, you know, and as I was going over there, I called her a couple times and she wasn't there. And that she had left a message. Now, this is going back to page 12 where you're talking about going over there after the recital. And this never happened, did it?
excuse me.
Well, there was never occasion after the recital where you were going over there calling her a couple times. Isn't that true?
This was during the day after the golf match, not after recital. That's correct.
Well, let's read this because I want to make sure that we have this in context, okay? We'll just read
But
all
this
the
is not in context. As I was explaining to you before, these things were running together at the time because of whatever condition I was in. Trying to remember not only Saturday, all of these things were running together to me. And that's why it got a little confused.
Okay, so when you say these things were running together with Saturday, you're talking about the statement where you were, as I was going, again, page 13, lines 13, 14, 15, where you say, as I was going over there, I called her a couple times and she wasn't there, and that she had left a message. Are you running together the 11th and the 12th in connection with
I think I'm
providing
running
that
it,
information?
excuse me, I'm sorry. I think I'm running it all together, the 11th to 12th, that day, that night. It's all was sort of running together to me at that time.
Okay, well, let's just go back to page 12. And if it's out of context, you let us know how it's out of context.
Okay.
Well, don't answer that question.
But that isn't a question. That's just a prelude to reading this, okay? On page 12, you read along with me, Mr. Simpson, there's a question.
What line?
Starting with page 12, line 25.
Okay.
The question to your ass is, what time is the recital? And your answer is, over at about 6:30. Like I said, I came home, I got in my car, I was going to see my girlfriend, I was calling her, she wasn't around. And we're now at page 13, the top of the page, line 1. We'll continue on. So you drove your answer, Bronco, the detectives. You got home in the rolls, subject, or suspect, yeah. And then you got in the Bronco. In your answer, Bronco, because my phone was in the Bronco. Detectives, okay. Suspect, and because it's the Bronco is what I drive. Detectives, yeah. Suspect, you know I rather drive it than any other car. And as I was going over there, I called her a couple times, and she wasn't there. She had left a message. And then I checked my messages. She had left me a message that she wasn't there, that she had to leave town. Then I came back and ended up sitting with Kato. Question, okay. And about what time was it again that you parked the Bronco? Suspect, 8 o'clock, something, maybe. Okay? Now, the statement that you make at lines 13 through 18 on page 13 is in reference to a discussion where you're describing what happened after the recital, true?
I believe so, yes.
And Mr. Simpson, what you described to them with respect to what you did after the recital was that you were headed to Paula's house and you were calling her. Is that true?
That's correct.
And you also said that you had checked messages and that she left you a message that she wasn't there. You said that, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. Was that true?
She had left a message on her message machine that she was not around, or words to that effect. I can't tell you specifically what it was.
Okay, so there is a message that she had left on her message machine indicating that she wasn't there and she had to leave town?
I believe it's just that she wasn't around. She may have said she was out of town for a few days. I just don't recall.
Okay, was that a standard?
Pardon me?
Your question said her message machine. You meant his.
No, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Are you saying that on her message machine there was a message that was particular to you, that she was out of town and wasn't there?
No, I think it was to everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're clear on this. You called Paula, and her message machine would come on, her voice presumably,
Yeah.
indicating that she wasn't there and she had to leave town.
Words to that effect, yes.
Okay. And I take it that you heard that message the first time you called her on the 12th.
I may have, but sometimes she does it just to avoid people. Yeah, I may have, yes.
Okay. Well, when you first called her on the 12th, the first time after Goal, was that message on her machine?
I believe so. I don't recall a change of message.
Did you not believe the message?
I don't think I paid any attention to it.
Okay, so when her message indicated that she was out of town and wasn't there, is that something that was inconsistent with her schedule or habits?
I'm sorry, you have to repeat that.
Well, you indicated in earlier testimony that Paula was a busy person. She was
Yes.
Working, correct?
Yes,
And it was not uncommon for her to go out of town. Isn't that true?
that's correct.
And the reason why she would go out of town was because she would be involved in various employment endeavors that necessitated her going out of town. Is that true?
Correct.
And so when you heard this message on the 12th that she was out of town and wasn't there, that was consistent with her past practices with respect to these employment endeavors. Isn't that true?
Correct.
And is there any reason why you didn't believe that message at that time?
Well, I didn't know. As I said, she told me she might be leaving town. Quite often she'll leave messages that she's leaving town to avoid people, and she's still in town. So I really didn't know one way or the other.
Did you have any reason to believe that with respect to this particular message on the 12th, that she was leaving that message because she wanted to avoid people?
I didn't know.
Do you think she wanted to avoid you?
That was a possibility.
And what was that based upon? What was that belief of yours, if any, based upon?
That I played golf that morning.
Okay. Did you have any discussion with her about your playing golf that morning?
No.
Did she ever say anything to you about your playing golf that morning?
That morning?
Yeah.
No,
In fact, the earlier evening, you've already testified you had a wonderful evening, right?
that's correct.
There was no indication that she was angry or dissatisfied with you when you left her on the 11th, true?
Yes,
And after you heard her message that she indicated that she was not there and out of town, you called her again, true?
yes,
And you called her during the same drive after you played golf, isn't that true?
that's correct.
And it was at that point that you left her a message, is that true?
That's correct.
And what was the message that you left?
That I was back from golf and I'd be at the house.
That you would be at your house?
Yeah,
Okay. And I assume that you expected that if this was one of these occasions where she was leaving a message to avoid people and she got your message, she would call you at your home. That was your hope, right?
if she wasn't avoiding me, yes.
And you've already testified, you didn't check your cell phone messages that day, right?
No,
If you received a message at your home on your answering machine, would there be any record of that?
I don't know. Depends where the message came from, I guess.
Well, for example, if you had a local call made to your residence where someone left a message on your machine and you got that message, would there be any record of any sort?
I
Relative
don't
to that
think so. I don't know.
And your belief that this statement that you made to the detectives in connection with this murder investigation is inaccurate is based upon your running together the 11th and the 12th?
And as well as he said,
Yeah, the whole day of the 12th, 11th, the 12th, and everything that was going on. A lot of this is just kind of ran together, and at that point in time, I was a little fuzzy about it all.
Mm-hmm.
I had other things on my mind.
In the following same page on lines 23 through 26, you mentioned that we had, referencing Kato, we had went and got a burger. You see that?
Yeah.
Lines 24,
Yeah.
25, 26. You see that?
Okay, I'm just trying to see it all leading up to it.
we'll read the whole line, starting at line 23, OJ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pardon me, I'm just trying. Yeah.
See that?
Lines 23?
Well, specifically the reference that you and Kato went and got a burger. You see that?
Yeah, wait a minute, let me see again. Yeah,
See what I'm looking at?
I see 23 and 24 they're talking about earlier than, we had taken relatively, we hadn't taken, he hadn't done a jacuzzi, he hasn't gone, we had went and got a burger, and I came home and kind of leisurely got ready to go.
Okay. When you talk about he hadn't done a jacuzzi, who are you talking about?
Kato.
Okay. I take it that your state of mind was sufficient to recall that detail to the investigators in connection with this murder investigation.
That's the
Yeah.
self-evident truth.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure that it's inaccurate. Some things are inaccurate. Let's find out what is and what isn't. I
Well, I
take
don't
it that you were able to recall that detail for them, Mr. Simpson.
Well, I knew he took a jacuzzi. I may be a little confused here at what time he took it, but because here it sounds like I got him. I don't know what it is here.
Well, when you say that Kato, your reference that Kato took a jacuzzi, that was based upon your recollection of what Mr. Kalin did on the 12th, true?
What he asked me to do, and that the jets were still on at some point.
No,
yeah.
there was some circumstantial evidence in your view that he had taken a jacuzzi then.
I didn't see him in jacuzzi.
Okay, but he left the jets on.
Yes,
He had asked you to take a jacuzzi.
that's correct.
And you assume, based upon those two factors, that he had in fact taken a jacuzzi.
Excuse me, you're going to have to slow down just a little bit for me here, please.
What's the last question you had?
I didn't see him in the jacuzzi.
Okay. And you had in fact assumed that he had taken a jacuzzi, is that true?
That's correct.
And you told the detectives that, right?
Yes. I told him he took a jacuzzi, but I had assumed. I didn't tell him I assumed he took a jacuzzi. I told him he did, but I assumed that, yes.
Okay. So in your mind, you had gone through a process where you had taken what Mr. Kalin had told you, coupled with what you observed, and concluded that he took a jacuzzi, and that's what you related to the investigators.
I don't recall thinking about all of that at the time. I just recall telling him he took a jacuzzi.
Okay. And then you indicate we went and got a burger, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And that's accurate, right?
I believe so.
Okay. I take it your state of mind was such that you were able to relate to them that information.
Yes.
And then you indicate that you kind of leisurely got ready to strike that. You said, I come home and kind of leisurely got ready to go. You see that statement?
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Truthful?
Yes.
You're able to relate that to him accurately then?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to jump back up and just ask you a couple more questions on this statement you made relative to the messages. At line 15, 16, and 17, you state, in providing information to the detectives, and then I checked my messages.
Yes.
See that?
Mm-hmm.
She had left me a message that she wasn't there, that she had to leave town. Right?
Yes.
That doesn't say anything about a message on her machine. You're talking about your machine, aren't you, sir?
I'm talking about I got a message from her, but there was no message on my machine.
Well, Mr. Simpson, what you were telling them in the English language is you checked your messages, aren't you?
Yeah. What I was trying to relate to him is that I got the message she was out of town, even though I still wasn't quite sure if she had left town, but she had not left me a message, and I had not picked up a message, and I think your records will show that.
Well, I don't care what our records will show. I'm trying to figure out what you're
Obviously,
telling
you
me.
don't.
When you say I checked my messages and she had left me a message, what you were intending to tell them was that there was a message on her machine telling you that she was out of town. She wasn't there.
I don't know if that's what I was meaning to tell them at that time. I think I was just trying to tell them that I had gotten a message that she was out of town.
Irrespective of whether it was on your machine or her machine.
Well, I know it wasn't on my machine because she never called my machine. And the machine she calls, as you know, I didn't pick up any messages. So, yes, I had gotten a message she was out of town, even though I got to admit I still didn't totally believe it.
Was this information based upon your memory at the time that you had checked your messages and that she had left you a message?
I
Was
don't know
that
what it was
your
based on at the
recollection
time.
at the time?
At the time, it was just based on trying to give information that what I thought I knew at the time. I was trying to let them know what I felt I knew at the time, and I was inaccurate. That's an inaccurate statement. I did not check my messages. I did check my machine at my home, and there was no message for Paula, and she never called my machine and left me a message at home.
And you just made a statement that one of the reasons you know that is because your phone bill. Is that true?
Pardon me?
You just made a statement to me that if you checked the phone bill, you would know that you didn't check your messages. Remember that statement?
Partially, yes. I was surprised that I didn't, because it seems to me that I normally will call my car phone, and I was surprised that I didn't.
Okay. And when you say you're surprised that you didn't, are you talking about an occasion where you reviewed your phone bill relative to cell phone charges and look at what calls you made that evening?
No, it went further back than that. It went to when Paula told me she had left a message there, and since I knew I had never received a message, at that point in time I realized I must have never picked up any messages from her.
When did Paula tell you this?
In jail.
When in jail?
I don't know, later on when I was in jail.
You were
At some
having a
point.
discussion with Paula about messages that you had left one another?
No, I think our discussion was about just everything that had happened, and somehow it came up. It wasn't a vital point at the time, which I don't think it is now, but that's my opinion. And she had said something about she was upset with me, and she had left a message.
She brought it up?
I don't know, brought it up. We were just talking about what was going on. She spent a lot of time with me while I was in jail.
Was that the first time after the murders that you ever had a discussion with Paula relative to messages that either she left you or you left her?
That was the first time in jail I had a discussion with Paula that I was aware that she was pissed that I got up to go play golf.
That wasn't my question. Was that the first time after the murders that you had had a discussion with Paula relative to what messages she left you or you left her, or any discussion whatsoever related to messages?
I don't recall. I just recall it was the only time I had a conversation with Paula concerning how she was feeling that day. And I don't recall if we talked about messages. I didn't see it didn't stand out in any conversation I had with her.